let's talk about using direct or indirect object. Okay, so you know a direct object is a pronoun, noun, or noun phrase that receive the action of a verb. And to find the direct object in the sentences, locate the action verb and ask what or whom it is acting on. For example, Jane admires her neighbor. Okay, so whom does Jane admire? Her neighbor. Her neighbor is the direct object in the sentences. Or Charlie bake a cake. What did Charlie bake? A cake. And so a cake is the direct object in the sentences. Of course, some verbs that have a direct object can also have an indirect object. A direct object will have a direct object will be in every sentences. Indirect object might not, but it can have in a lot of sentences that have a direct object but can also have an indirect object. An indirect object is the pronoun, noun, or noun phrase that receive the direct object of verb. The indirect object always appear in between a verb and its direct object. And so, to find the direct object in a sentences, locate the action verb and its direct object and ask to what or to whom the direct object is being given, or for what or for whom the action is being performed. For example, Charlie baked his mom a cake. Okay, as we know, cake is the direct object because Charlie is baking a cake. But whom did Charlie bake a cake for? His mom. So his mom is the indirect object in the sentences. Of course, we need to be careful not to confuse an indirect object with an object of a preposition. An object of preposition is a pronoun, noun, or noun phrase that comes directly after a preposition, such as to, for, in, under, or during. Charlie baked a cake for his mom. Okay, here his mom is an object of a preposition, not an indirect object. But you can tell because his mom comes directly after preposition for, and because it does not appear in between the verb bake and the direct object cake, so it is not an indirect object. Okay, so let's practice. Dominic thoughtfully reserve his fellow hiker a camping spot. Okay? It is asking, is the phrase in bold a direct object or in an indirect object? His fellow hikers. Okay? I can see reserve is a verb. A camping spot. Thoughtfully reserve. Okay, a camping spot is a direct object because Dominic is reserving a camping spot, but his fellow hiker is an indirect object because it is standing in between the verb reserve and the direct object, a camping spot. So, it is an indirect object. Troy caught us a huge catfish for lunch. Okay. A huge catfish for lunch. So Troy, I can see caught is a verb. A huge catfish. Let's ask as a question. What is Troy caughting? Okay, Troy. So all we have to do is just ask what Troy's doing with a verb. Yeah. So here, Troy caught a huge catfish for lunch. So what is Troy caughting? A huge catfish. And since it is what Troy's caughting, so it is a direct object. Plus, it is not standing in between a direct object and a verb because itself is a direct object. Claire left her server a generous tip. Okay, what I can see left is the verb. So let's ask ourselves a question. What is Claire lefting? Claire are lifting a generous tip. Okay, since Claire is lifting a generous tip would be a direct object because it is not an indirect object. An indirect object is her server because her server is what receiving the generous tip. So yeah, it is a direct object. Same thing go for other question. Here the manager ordered her staff pizza for lunch. Okay, I can see order is the verb, so let's ask us a question. What is the manager ordering? Pizza. Okay, since the manager is ordering pizza, is the manager ordered pizza for her staff, and we know that pizza is a direct object, order is the verb, and her staff is standing in between the verb and a direct object, so her staff will be an indirect object. Okay, on a whim, Meg bought her husband a new leather wallet. Okay, on the whim, Meg bought her husband a new leather wallet. I can see bought is a verb, so let's ask ourselves a question. What is Meg boughting? Okay, what is Meg buying? Okay, Meg is buying a new leather wallet. Since Meg is buying a new leather wallet, so a new leather wallet would be a direct object. Plus, it is not an indirect object because it is not standing in between the verb and a direct object. Here, the indirect object is her husband. However, it is asking us which this phrase in the bowl, and a new leather wallet is a direct object. Okay, every summer Mr. Barrett served local beachgoers ice cream from the boardwalk. I can see serve is a verb. So let's see. Let's ask us a question. What is Mr. Barrett serving? Okay, Mr. Barrett serving ice cream. But ice cream is a direct object. However, it's asking us what is local beachgoers. I think it would be an indirect object because you see local beachgoer are standing in between surf and ice cream. So yeah, it is an indirect object. It is standing in between the verb and the direct object. So indirect object. Eve Huber sang the national anthem beautifully. Okay, I can see saying is a verb, so let's ask us a question again. Eva Huber, what is Eva Huber saying? What is Eva Huber singing? Okay, Eva Huber are singing the national anthem, but it's asking us for beautifully. First of all, in the sentences, the national anthem is a direct object. Saying is a verb, and we don't have any indirect object because you see, indirect object can be in the sentences, but it can also not be in the sentences. So yeah, but beautifully here are neither because you see, beautifully are not in a direct object because like Eva Huber are not singing beautifully, right? Are not like singing. I know like it makes sense, but Eva Huber are not singing the song that called beautifully, but because it is saying that the Eva Huber are singing the national anthem, and the national anthem here is a direct object. And in here there isn't any indirect object because there are no words standing in between the verb saying and the direct object. And the direct object, not the national anthem. However, beautifully are not standing in between neither of them, so it is not an indirect object. So it is neither a direct object or indirect object because we know the direct object is a national anthem, and the indirect object would be standing in between the verb and the direct object. but in this sentences there are no indirect objects. So beautifully, here are neither. Okay, Olivia always buy her family meaningful gifts. I can see buy is a direct object. So let's ask us a question to see whether it is a direct object or an indirect object. Okay, what is Olivia buying? Olivia are buying her family meaningful gifts. However, okay, since Olivia is buying her family are buying meaningful gift would be a direct object. Her family are not in this. And plus, meaningful gifts are the direct object, buys a verb, and her family standing between verb and the direct object. So her family would be an indirect object. Because in this indirect object is what is like receiving the direct object. Okay, mindful of the hot sun, Mia offered dog some water. I can see offer is a verb. So again, let's ask us another question. What is Mia offering? Okay, Mia is offering offering some water, and it is asking us some water. What it is? Okay, some water here are an indirect object because it is what Mia are offering. Mr. Goodman wrote me glowing recommendations. Okay, wrote is a verb, so let's ask as a question. What is Dr. Goodman writing? Dr. Goodman is writing a glowing recommendations. So here, a glowing recommendation would be a direct object because it is what Dr. Goodman is writing. Me would be an indirect object because Dr. Goodman is writing a glowing recommendation for me. Plus, a glowing recommendation we know is a direct object, and wrote is a verb. So me is standing in between verb and a direct object. So me is an indirect object. A glowing recommendation would definitely be a direct object. Okay, anxious for a home run. Kadane hit the baseball hard. Hit is a verb. So let's ask us a question. What is Caden hitting? Caden is hitting the baseball. Hard are like in this sentences, Caden hit the baseball hard here. There are no indirect object. Like I said, the indirect object would be standing in between a direct object and a verb. However, we know that the baseball is a direct object, but there aren't any indirect objects standing between the verb hit and the direct object, the baseball. Plus, hard here are it is like neither a direct object or an indirect object because it is something. Because it is not standing. We know that the direct object is the baseball, plus the indirect object would be standing in between the direct object and the verb, and there are no indirect objects, so it is neither. Is the phrase in the bold a direct object, an indirect object, or neither? We made my sister homemade root beer for her birthday party. Okay? Made is the verb. So let's ask us a question. What is we making for her birthday? Okay, I can see for it's a preposition and what came after the preposition will not be an indirect object or an indirect object. So her birthday party is neither. Okay, from now I don't think we need to ask us a question or anything because you see we can just do it in our head. So okay, here farm and feed often feed their dairy cattle high protein alfalfa hay. Often feed, what is the farm feeding? Feeding high protein alfalfa hay, so high protein alfalfa hay. is an indirect object.